What's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Straightforward Podcast. Today's guest is a longtime friend of mine. Her name is Morgan. How do you say your new last name? Morgan Kauahi?
Kauahi. Close.
Kauahi. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm still saying that wrong.
Okay.
Morgan and I go way back. So we were actually really good friends when I used to live in Charlotte, North Carolina. We worked at the same gym together. We used to go out to the lake with all of our friends. We had a blast. Since then, we've both kind of gone separate ways and done the whole life thing, and we're trying to start careers. And Morgan is in the nutrition field. So today, she's going to drop some knowledge on the things she sees the most, how she helps her clients, trends that are helpful for people. And if we have time, we're going to move into some deeper stuff. But I'll leave that as like a little surprise for you guys if we get there. So without further ado, Morgan, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into nutrition, all the things, whatever you want to share. Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So exciting. So awesome to see our friends just growing and learning and succeeding. Like you said, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I guess for nutrition and like health, I've always had a foundation of that because of my mom. Growing up, I'm an only child, very close to my mom, and as far as I can remember, she always ate healthy, always worked out. She's the one that got me into CrossFit, like, I guess, over 10 years ago. And so I think my foundation of wanting to learn and grow in my health and nutrition knowledge and wanting to help people, it really is all due to her, which is awesome. And I'm so thankful for that because it's not something I think that I have to think about. I feel like it really is just part of me and part of my like discipline since I can remember is I want to be healthy. I want to feel healthy and I want to, fuel my body like the right way.
100%.
And are you okay? Oh, okay.
Yep.
And so I guess, I remember when where do I want to start? My journey in nutrition started when I started CrossFit, really. Like, I think choosing to eat healthy and grow in my knowledge of nutrition started when I got into CrossFit. And my mom got me a whole year paid at our old gym, Vitality.
Wow.
I think it was like, sorry. I think I started there, I guess, in 2015 or something. Maybe 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started to eat a specific amount of certain things like really working on like my macros, I saw such a significant difference and change in my performance. And so that is when I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole nother side to food. Like really seeing it as it can affect so many things in your life, And so we got our level 1 together. If you didn't remember that, we got our CrossFit level 1 together. And then
we did. That's right.
I started coaching, which was so fun, but then I was like, I want to help people more, and nutrition is that side of it. It's if you want to be healthier and feel better and get better at your fitness, it's mainly the nutrition. We know that. So I did my precision nutrition course and I got my certificate with them and I started my own nutrition business. So MK Nutrition LLC, I started that about, I guess, 3 years ago. And I really did it because I wanted to help people, but I wanted to help them on a personal level, right? And I wanted to do it in the way that I felt was right. I didn't want to be under someone where it was a cookie cutter, one size fits all, because we know that doesn't work, right? So, or I believe that that's just not what is the most effective, And so I created MK Nutrition and I've been personally coaching people, helping them with their nutrition for a couple years now, which has been so fun, and I have learned so much through it. Sorry, she's crying. Can you hear her?
Very little, and it's totally okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait. So how old is your daughter now?
Almost 5 months.
Yeah. So you're a new mother. You're in the thick of it. You're doing the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's the beauty I think I've realized too in owning your own business is, seasons come and seasons go. Like, you have a kid or you have more kids or whatever that looks like. You get married or you move. Like when you have your own business, it's so flexible and you can do that anytime, anywhere. And that's the beauty that I've found in doing this nutrition coaching is I get to help people no matter where I live or what I do, or, it's such a valuable thing to get to do. And it's so fun to get to help people in that way.
Yeah. No. Totally. Yeah. Owning your own business can be a nightmare sometimes, but it can also be really rewarding. I mean, especially profitable, yes, but like the flexibility, the doing it from anywhere, owning your own hours, like it's really really awesome. But it's demanding.
It's
It's really demanding. That's for sure.
totally. And you know what? It's risky. It's risky to go out on a limb and invest all this money into a business that may not even work. But if it does work, guess what? You're on the other edge of it, and you start seeing the profit and you start growing and learning, and it's amazing and it's brave, I think, to start your own business.
Yeah, 1,000%. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So you decided to start your own business. Since then, what would you say has been the biggest thing you've learned? Maybe specifically on the coaching clients part.
Leave your head on.
We have a visitor.
Yeah.
Well, this is part of life.
Aw.
This is Rose. Say hi, Kyle.
Hey there. You,
My
you didn't want
Tonka.
you're not tired yet? Does
What
she
do you
usually nap
need?
pretty good?
Yeah, she does. She's probably just like, where's my mom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm right
She's
here.
screwing your head off enough. It's so cold.
You're okay. Just lay her right over there, babe, and see how she does. You're okay. Sorry.
That's the best. Being a parent's the best.
It really is.
It changes. Hey, if you need it, if you need to go over there, that's totally okay. We can do it another time. It's not a big deal.
I've just been trying to figure out what she needs, and if she's hungry, then I'm the only one that can help her. Just walk her around. Turn her around. She doesn't like to be faced that way. Okay, let's see how long she lasts doing that. Maybe go outside if you need to. Let me close this door.
I remember that with Maverick. It was so confusing. I was like, I don't know what you need, buddy. Like, I don't know how to help you.
I know. I feel like at this stage though, I feel like I've learned her well, so it's like when he's here it's hard because sometimes we're out of like our routine, and so it's like, well, figuring it out again, but that's cool.
Yeah. It literally is just constantly figuring it out back and forward.
Yeah, and then once you figure it out, there's another stage that comes.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so yeah, we'll keep going, and if you have to stop, just let me know. No big deal.
Okay.
So what I was asking was, since you started your business and you've been working with clients,
Mm-hmm.
what's been the biggest thing you've learned what's been the most helpful thing with these clients, and maybe a common thread that you see that you kind of have to overcome with them?
I think it kind of goes back and forth. One main thing that was mind blowing to me when I first started coaching was I coach a lot of women naturally, right? And I realized very quickly when I had a first couple of my newer clients in the beginning stage was I realized, there's this client and they have the goals, right? And you want to so bad to get to the goals, but when you dive a little bit deeper, you realize like they talk to themselves very negatively, or they're viewing food very poorly, and like, oh, if I had a cookie today, I guess I have to work out harder tomorrow. And just that really negative mindset around food and around your body and around your relationship with yourself and food, right? So as soon as I realized that, I was like, wow, this nutrition coaching is way more than just getting my clients to their goals. This is like this foundation of your relationship with yourself and food needs to be priority over even getting to those goals, right? Because if you hate yourself here, you're going to hate yourself at the goal when you reach the goal. So that is the main thing that stuck out to me when I first began coaching, was really helping women heal their relationship with food,
Yeah.
honestly, because the diet culture is just so prominent these days, and have to look this certain way and have to be this certain pounds and inches to succeed, and that's just not true. It's not one size fits all type of method, for success. So
Yeah.
that's the main thing that I've realized through coaching. It's way more than just food. It's prioritizing that relationship with food, I think, is the foundation and the most valuable thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I found it to be very similar with when I work with my clients. I work with them with nutrition, but that's not like my expertise, right? But even with just work, like the working outside of it, it's so much more about, it's almost like you're life coaching them. Like you're almost like people's
Exactly.
therapist a lot of times. So you like, to your point, it's not just goals. It's not just, hey, do X, Y, and Z. It's like, it's really changing the mindset and the beliefs and the relationship to self and others and to the gym or to nutrition or whatever. And so it goes way deeper than just, hey, just go work out. Like it's a lot. So that's interesting. So what have you found to be like, I don't know, how do you approach that when you're working with a client? Like, how do you help? Is it just conversations? Do you give them any tool? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, usually the tools is like journaling. Or I know it sounds like so lame, but it really is so helpful for clients to have prompts to be like, okay, how am I feeling today? Or I ate a whole slice of cheesecake. Okay, well, what was going on, 10, 30, an hour before that for you to want to eat that? Like really, the tools I give them is like questions and prompts to turn to become more aware of their choices around food, I guess. And I think that awareness is key. Often it like turns a light bulb on to my clients of, wow, actually I have really bad habits around food, and this is why. And it's because they got no sleep the night before, or because they woke up feeling really stressed, or they didn't get the job they wanted, or something. It's always something deeper, usually.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that for most people that it's most commonly an emotional reaction? Is that
Definitely.
overeating or eating too many desserts or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. And most people don't know that. They don't know that side of food. They don't know that they can eat that whole bag of chips out of emotion. So I think what I've realized is bringing that awareness to clients. That's the biggest first step, is that awareness. And once you're aware, then you can make those implemental changes.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you go about prescribing macros to your clients? What's your process for that? And do you find that a lot of females, because you said you work with ladies the most, do you find that a lot of females are under eating? Because I think that's probably, for me, it's been the most common thing that I've seen.
100%. Every single woman thinks that they eat enough protein and they don't. Even me. I'll be like, yeah, I hit my protein goal today, and I track it and I'm like, oh, nope, didn't. Like it's so common
Yeah.
for women to not just undereat in general, but mainly undereat protein. And um so usually I would have them track, right? And this doesn't have to be like perfect. It doesn't have to be MyFitnessPal, but they'll send me what they eat pictures or taking notes of what they eat during the day. That way I can get a true assessment of what their intake is. And yes, usually it is very low. And but that gives me a true assessment. You know, they'll say, "Oh, I ate enough protein," but then they'll send me it and it's definitely not, usually. And so normally, I guess it's obviously, you know, depends on their like activity level or their goals. Usually I usually my approach is normally like smaller steps, um, going towards the larger ones. So I'll normally just have them focus on trying to build up their protein intake first, because usually that keeps them fuller and that'll kind of like make all the other small things go away, like the whole like snacking on wrong things or overeating or whatever. And so I'll normally start with like helping them up their intake on protein, just because that helps usually everything else kind of fade away. But I like to do the like palm size idea, because it's like very practical for people, and
Yeah.
it's not like they have to fully log all their intake on MyFitnessPal. You know, it kind of depends on like the level that that client is at, you know, like do they have the capability to track their food, like, or do they just need something like super simple, like their hand, you know, protein size at every meal or whatever. um so normally I'll start there and then kind of see how that goes a couple of weeks. And if they can do that consistently, you know, giving them that step one or step two to do, and if they can really follow through with doing that consistently for a couple weeks, then I'll add on to those, you know, next steps. But I
Yeah.
like to start small and help them like build that consistency and then build from there, because if they can't do that to begin with, then I don't want to give them more, you know, steps to take.
Right. Not overwhelm them all at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. What about micronutrients? Are you big on, making sure your clients are hitting micronutrients, or do you focus first on macros and then micros?
Yeah, I kind of get, once they send me their intake, right? Like I get a good idea of what their normal intake looks like. I kind of just go from there. Like some people are great at getting their micronutrients, you know. I kind of just gather information from that. If I feel like they're doing okay and they just really need to focus on protein, I'll go that route. But if it's like, you know, all junk all the time, then maybe I'll start with the micronutrients, right? Like, hey, let's try to get, you know, a handful of veggies for at least like 2 meals today, you know, each day or something.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of depends, but definitely thinking about that as well, because obviously that's very important too.
Yeah. It's one of my pet peeves, honestly, and I understand where people are coming from, and maybe I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but one of my pet peeves is when people say, well, a calorie is a calorie. So if you have 100 calories of brownies and 100 calories of broccoli, I mean, it's the same thing. And I get what they're saying, right? Like, if you're just trying to reach a calorie total in the day, sure. If it's one slice of cake to make it 2,000 calories as opposed to like some chicken breasts and broccoli, yes, it's the same thing. But the trade off there is it is so detrimental to your system. All the sugar, all the crap, the process, and it's going to spike your hunger hormone. Like it's not going to be the same. So when people say that, I'm like, I get it, but we should really be pushing quality too.
Totally. I totally agree. And honestly, my husband has challenged me in this area so much, because he'll eat whatever I make, but he's definitely not used to eating tons of whole foods like fruits and vegetables. And so I've really had to explain to him that quality, like these things are important. And I guess my approach too is that excuse me, that longevity piece, right? Of feeling your best. Like really, that's the most important, is feeling your best. And I guarantee you a chicken breast and broccoli is not going to make you feel the same as a piece of cake, right? Like you're going to want to take a nap. You're going to crash. Like you're just going to feel junk. And I think that is key, like eating to help us feel our best. And that's where that micronutrients importance comes in, is we want to feel our best, and that food can heal us if we eat the right things. And it goes into that whole diet culture, and like the way that sorry, the the way that the food system has been lying to us. And like it goes into the whole, when you go down the aisles of the grocery store, the boxes that gets your attention, and it's because they want to keep us sick. So this is a whole rabbit hole that I could go down, but
It's true.
they want to pack us full of all of these processed foods, you know, and it's gonna make us sick, and it's gonna keep us in the hospitals and keep the emergency rooms and pharmacies open, you know. And I think it's a whole lie that a lot of us are believing, and we have to turn back to our most simple ways of like getting those nutritious foods that can heal us and help us feel the best.
Yeah, 1,000%. It all comes back to money. That's all it is. These big corporations and conglomerates or whatever. Like, I'm a bit of a, I guess, I think there is a bit of an evil intention behind it, but we won't go that rabbit hole. At the very least, there's money, and it's all about making money and power and whatever, and it's terrible.
And
And
guess what the root of all evil is?
the
Money.
love, the love of money, just wanting more, more, and more. It's crazy. I mean, I get it, right? Like money, it's helpful. We need it, but geez, man, they take it to it's just crazy. Yeah, we
Yeah.
could have a whole podcast on that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the cereal boxes, like anytime you go down the aisle, they literally design it to like. I actually saw a podcast on this or a clip or something where they design it to look down, like it looks like the eyes are looking down at kids. You know, like the tiger on the cereal box or whatever. So like the kids are like, "Mom, can I have whatever?" And they pressure the parents into buying it. It's like,
Yep.
oh my goodness, it's crazy.
Don't let them get to our children.
Yeah, that's 100%.
I've also seen that when you're checking out at the grocery stores, the little short aisle right there as you're checking out, all the candy and all the chips, and they say, I've heard that once you're checking out, your decision making in your brain is tired from grocery shopping. So they've literally targeted that. So your choices in the whatever in your brain is making your choices in the grocery store is tired from doing all that. You go and check out, and there all the candy, all the bright bags and boxes of candy are there, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna grab this, and like not even thinking about it, you grab it because you want to eat it on your ride home. And they target that, you know, and it's sad.
It's really sad. Yeah, it is really sad, and I 100% believe that. I think that sounds entirely like what they would be doing. But hey, whatever. They're running a business too, and I guess that's how they figure out how to make more money. It's like
It's true. But we're here to steer people the opposite way.
100%. Okay, what about supplementing? Do you have your clients supplement at all? Do you go down that path with them?
No, I wouldn't say that I encourage it. Just because I don't know, I don't feel like I know enough. I used to work at a supplement shop, actually. It's called Vitamin Shop here for a couple years, I guess, which was so fun. I learned so much about supplements and vitamins. Um, but I wouldn't say I am an expert enough in that area to be like, hey, you need to take this. If anything, depends on their goals, but if they were a CrossFitter, I would always suggest creatine. But really just because I used it and I loved it, and it made a huge impact on me and my fitness journey. So
Yeah.
Not a ton. No, I wouldn't say I would suggest a ton other than maybe creatine and like protein powder if they needed that supplement to meet their protein goals.
Yeah. No, I do agree with that too. I think supplements can be really helpful. I
Yeah.
think at a bare minimum, creatine, protein. I personally like to take a greens powder. Some people are, hey, the greens powder is pointless and doesn't do. It's like I just really like it, so that's why I
Yeah.
take it. But at a bare
Yeah.
minimum, I think creatine and protein are really helpful. And then
Yeah.
once you get the low hanging fruit like picked first, the sleeping, the eating quality food, you're hitting your macro goal, like all that stuff. Once you've done that, then maybe venture into supplements. That's usually my take.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what I was going to say when you said the greens is like, if someone isn't eating vegetables at all, I'm not going to say, here, take greens powder because that's just it's helping them just choose the fast option, right? And we want to steer clear of that. We want like the longevity piece. So helping them get those, like you said, like the low hanging fruit, the foundation of eating the whole foods and, protein and feeling good. And then maybe down the road supplementing, then that's totally fine. But I think a lot of people I've worked with, they need those basics, right? They need to work. That's what they need to work on, is just those basics of nutrition. Like you said, sleep, protein, whole foods, movement. like that, those are a lot of the main things that most people, that's what they need. They don't need the whole like do this. Like it's normally the basic things that you just need to like steer them the right way and they crush it, and that's what helps them build the foundation for, years down the road where they don't need me. They'll just have that foundation of those key things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important to note too, that it's not I think a good coach can help someone get to the point where they don't need the coach anymore. You
Yeah,
know, like you don't want to be relying on someone forever. If you want to do it and it helps you, like sure, that's fine. But I think it's worth investing in a good coach that's going to teach you things, and then that way you can do it forever. Like you want to be able to do it on your own.
exactly.
My opinion.
Exactly, totally. And if you have a coach that wants you to put you in a place where you will need them forever, it's not the coach you should be with.
Yeah, then at that point they're just trying to get as much money out of you as possible.
Exactly.
Um, so what? Okay, so as far as you've been running your business now for 3 years, right? You said 3 years. What is
Yeah,
what is
21.
what's the business journey been like? What's been the struggles, like the high notes? Because I know I like as I'm doing this, like it's hard. There are days where you're like, I want to quit. I just want to be able to clock in, clock out, collect my check, and that be it. Like it's really tempting. So I'm sure you can definitely shed light on that as well.
Yeah, you've been honestly a huge inspiration to me to see you consistently for these years just show up, because really that's the hardest part, is showing up every day. Like, oh, I gotta sit on my couch and make content. Like, it's just that there's no excitement to that, which some days you feel excited, some days not, which I guess is everything. But that's definitely the hardest part, is just showing up. But if you don't show up, it's not going to grow, and so you have to kind of keep that when you own your own business. You have to keep that in the forefront of your mind, is the long-term goals, the dreams. You have to keep that in your forefront, because that will help you show up every day. But no one's there, no one's there to be like, come on, Morgan, let's open up your folder and make some MK content for the day. Like,
Yeah.
no one's there to be like, come on, you got to clock in.
Oh,
Um, so that is challenging for sure. I feel that. But you just got to do it. And it's like you said, I heard you say in one of your other podcasts, like you have that one post that blows up and then it's like it just starts paying off, so if you just stay at it even when you don't want to, it'll pay off. But gosh, that's just with everything. That's with fitness, that's with life. You just have to keep showing up.
that 100%. That's it. I've said this in interviews before where they're like, like a job interview, like what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And I was like, honestly, my mom, she told me when I was younger that if I just show up, that's half the battle, and then the rest will take care of itself.
So
So that's what I
true.
try to do. I just try to show up.
That is so true. But it sounds so simple, but really that's so true. It's half the battle. Like once you show up, you got one, you're golden.
Yeah,
Even if you give it 50% of your efforts, like it's better than nothing than staying still.
yeah. Do you know who? So I've been talking about him on like every podcast because I'm obsessed with him right now. Alex Hermosi. Do you follow him on Instagram?
No.
So I would recommend following him. He's a big business mind, so he just understands business and how to just help people be successful. He gives out a ton of free content, but he provides a lot of motivational content because he started very similar to us and really everyone, just like bottom of the barrel, and now he's crushing it, like crushing it. But one of the things he says, which I find encouraging, is like, well, two things. One, it's not a battle of beating people, it's a battle of outlasting people, which is an entirely different thing. Like, you just got to outlast, which I find is like super encouraging. If you just keep showing up, like,
Yeah.
you're good. Like, just outlast. Do one more piece, like, for one more day, do one more piece of content than someone else, and everyone will just kind of fall off, and you're good. And Steve actually said this when we had our podcast. You remember Steve from Vitality. How
Yeah.
could you forget, right? Big beard. He
Yeah.
said when he was starting his business, he just had to, he was like, you just got to shove a square peg in a round hole over and over and over again until it finally goes through. He's like, that's what it's going to feel like. It's like, oh, okay. So you're just not going to work basically for a really long time.
And honestly, one struggle that I have is I'm not a business minded person at all. I just want to help people. I just want to help people feel their best and reach their goals, and that's it. But I've gotten into this field where I'm having to, like you said, like I want to pull on other people, for that inspiration to keep going because I want to keep helping people. And it's like where I lack in that business mindset. I have to really pull inspiration, even like from my husband. He's very business minded, and so I'm like, asking him all these questions and helping him. He's encouraging me to just keep doing it, even though, it may not be fun or you may not want to or whatever, that it will eventually pay off. And so I just think to myself, in order to keep doing my passion, which is helping people, I have to keep trying to do the, harder things like the business side of things that isn't too fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the weird thing about like, until you step into like trying to reach a goal of any sort, it all I describe it as like you get like the Rocky montage scene fever. Like you watch the movie and you see that scene and you're like, oh, that looks awesome, I want to do it, that's so cool. But then if you were to like, if you could go into Rocky's mind in that moment of him training and scared that he's going to lose and doubtful and just suffering and all this stuff, he's probably got a lot of thoughts of like, this really sucks. And so until you step into those shoes and you do something hard, you don't really understand like all the back end stuff it takes of like sitting on your couch staring at your phone editing and like having a conversation with your husband of like, I hate this and I want to quit, and he's like, hey, don't quit. Like all that stuff, you don't see any of that. You just see the post that shows up on social media or whatever.
Right.
And so like people don't realize that until they get into it, and then they're like, oh yeah, this is challenging.
Totally. Totally. So true.
Yeah. So let's do this. Tell me, so you've been married now for how long?
This year will be 4 years in July.
Awesome. I love it. What have you learned since being married? Let's step into that arena, because I'm sure
Oh,
I'm
goodness.
sure there's like a billion things you could share there.
It's a good question. Yeah, definitely. Where do I want to go with it?
Has it been tough to balance it with work, like with running a business and being a mom, being a wife, like for someone out there who maybe is trying to do the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, since we are Christian, like we definitely have to prioritize each other. We have our daughter now that's 5 months, and even that is like a whole nother journey of like, you think your marriage is good, he'll have a baby and then see if it's good, like it's such a journey of really trying to prioritize each other. When he comes home, I'm home with her. When he comes home from work, my tank is empty, his tank is empty. Well, we don't have much to give each other. So it's like, it's really this season, like figuring out what our time looks like now, what does it look like to prioritize us. It's such a marriage is such a journey in general, but I think really marriage is a team, and in every season you just have to remember that you're on the same team and that you're in it together. You're not each other's enemy. That this is the life you've created together, and to really prioritize like serving each other. That's a big one for us. Is if we're not serving each other, then we're probably like super distant, and just really loving each other well, like how the Bible says, and, respecting him and him loving me. And yeah, that's something that since having Rose, like it's been kind of a new season for us, right? So we're like just getting our feet wet in this season of like, okay, what does it look like now? Because you first get married and then it's like you learn so much then. Well, then you have kids and now it's like a whole nother hill of you got to go up and over. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question at all, but that's just where we're at right now.
No, it totally does. There's a guy at the church I go to. We were having a conversation. He's actually doing a marriage seminar. I'm going to go to it this week. But what he said was, a lot of people misunderstand the point of marriage. They think it's just to like be married and like you find this ideal partner and it's just bliss and it's whatever. And especially as believers, we probably realize this more than like the secular world. But like the point of marriage is to become more like Jesus, and you become more like Jesus through going through really hard stuff. And so it's like, it's not really meant to make you happy. Like that's not the goal. The goal isn't happiness. The goal is to become more like Jesus, which means it's going to be really hard. And so there's going to be moments where you want to like argue and you want to get mad and you're this or whatever, and you're passive or you're aggressive or you're whatever. And it's really like to refine you. And that was a good light bulb moment for me. Like, oh, so it kind of changes your perspective of things that pop up. Rather than being like, this shouldn't be happening, it's supposed to be happy and go lucky. You're like, okay, this is supposed to happen, and I'm supposed to rise to the challenge. Okay, how do I do that?
Totally.
And then you start skills and tools and all that.
Oh yeah, marriage is like you're under a microscope all the time. And so it's like, oh, you woke up in a bad mood. Well, oh, you have a negative attitude today. Well, your husband's going to see it and you're going to need to face it. And you're probably going to need to humble yourself and apologize. And you'll be better for it tomorrow. Like you're so right. Like rising to the challenges every day. And you, yeah, that perspective is so important, because that's when we do grow and learn, like instead of just being like, prideful to the problem and not allowing it to shape you and form you, then that's where the fruit comes, right? Our growth comes is when we humble ourselves to the challenges that come.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I find it very hard to apologize when you mess up, because there's like such a pride thing there. You're like, I don't want to admit that you're completely right and I'm just a dickhead. I don't want to admit that.
Totally. I'm usually the last one to apologize. Usually my husband's the first one to apologize. So my husband's so patient, so humble. Like I'm a total different person from being better, not bad, but a totally better person and being married to him for almost 4 years, because he challenges me every day in the best way of like, wow, you were so patient with our daughter. Like, I need to be more like you. And, marriage stretches you for sure.
Oh, that's really cool to hear you say. It's encouraging when I feel like it doesn't seem like wives say that a whole lot about their husband. At least I don't see that a lot. So it's cool. It's cool to hear you say that. It sounds like he's really working hard to do well. That's awesome.
I've heard that, sorry, one more thing it just reminded me. I've heard that your spouse or your significant other, you should always, always lift them up. Like, even if, we're having a conversation about my husband, I will never say anything bad about him, because I, as his wife, want to always lift him up, always talk positively of him, because our words have life or death on them. And so that's something that has really been huge for me as a wife, is always speaking life over him, to him, but also when he's not around, to others, always speaking life, because that's so important.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that. I'd love for you to share, as much as you'd like to, a little bit on what happened with your first child, and the kind of the journey that you guys went through. I think people will. I think it would be helpful for someone out there, because I know that was a really challenging situation for sure. So, I don't even have any idea what that would feel like. Right, I have no idea. So, as much as you'd like to, I'd love for you to. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me try to plug his phone in.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I think what would help me, like, conversation wise, to get more valuable content, is ask me more specific questions about what you want me to touch on. Like, you want me to talk about having rain, but what is it that you think would be valuable to your listeners? Like, it's just this more specific question. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Instead of just like a more like, instead of so broad. Hold on.
Yeah.
You think about that really quick. Babe, being in here is not helpful to me, because I can hear her anyway. I think we're about done anyway. Maybe just go sit on the couch with her, or what? Can you shut this door? Hi, that's sad. Okay. Did you think of any specific question?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
So, your first child, Rain, you all ended up miscarrying, correct?
Yep, he was stillborn, so I had him at 38 weeks. So he was full term. Yeah, I had a placenta abruption, which means my placenta separated from the uterine wall, so he passed away like right before I had him, basically.
So there was no real way to prepare for that. So it was kind of like spur of the moment.
Yep, very, very rare, very freak thing. Like, I had a completely healthy pregnancy, no issues, no problems. So yeah, very rare, rare thing that happened.
And do they have any idea what caused that, or what causes that?
Placenta abruptions happen. They are rare, but it is fatal to the baby and the mom. So it's just one of those, risks to pregnancy, that it can happen. It doesn't happen often, but yeah.
Yeah, no. So you have Rain. you realized that he passed away. What was the what were the next days like? Because I know, like, I saw your social media. I know it was really challenging. What did that grieving process look like? And, like, how did you handle those emotions, especially with Grant? I mean, I know that was heavy.
Gosh, yeah. We did get to spend like the full day with him. Although he was passed away, we got to like hold him and love on him, which was really, really special. I honestly have never felt God's presence more. Like, God was just so near to us, and I think he's near to the brokenhearted, and I am here to testify that that's true. Like, the Bible says he's near to the brokenhearted, and he is. I just remember worshiping, like, Grant and I that night, actually, in the hospital. We just turned a worship song on and we just sang and cried and wept and held each other. Um, and I just remember thinking, like, we called one of our old leaders in Kona and we told him the news. And he was one of my ministry leaders for 4 years at the missions organization that I worked with, and one of Grant's best friends. And the first thing he told us was, well, we know God wastes nothing. And so that truth gave me so much peace of, like, even though this hurts really, really bad, and like we were so excited, our first son, our parents' first grandchild, like we were so excited and he was so loved, and that comes with so much hurt and anger and disappointment. Like, even in the midst of that, I felt God's purpose and plan, and just that he doesn't waste anything, and that I just held on to that. And obviously I think the months down the road, like, was a challenge. Is grief journeys are ups and downs, and some days you're fine and some days you're not. And it was such a journey. But those first couple of days, I think they were so marked by God's presence and his purpose within the pain. And for that, I'm very, very thankful.
Yeah. I think it surprises people. I think it will surprise people to hear you say, firstly, that you were not angry. I mean, I'm sure there might have been anger, and I actually would like for you to talk about that. But the first thing you said is you just felt God's presence and, like, you worshiped. I think that's a foreign concept to a lot of people who aren't believers, right? Something bad happens, and it's like, where's God? How could God do this? This is terrible. This is whatever. But you guys didn't do that. I mean, it's very much like the story of Job. Like, Job questioned God, right? Like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Even his friends were like, there's got to be hidden sin in your life. And God at the end was like, hey, where were you when I created all this? It's like, I'm God. Like, and it sometimes that's not a very, like, we don't like that answer, but he's God and we're not, and we can't understand it. So I don't know if you want to chat on that a little bit, like those feelings of anger. Did you have them? How did you handle them? Because I'll speak from experience. When I get angry, I've definitely, like, cussed at God. I've been like, what the heck? And it's like, it's childish. But I'm curious what you would say on that.
No, I think I was 100% angry. I allowed myself to be angry. But I read this book that talked about grieving, and there's so much grieving in the Bible, actually, and that's what this book touched on, was practical ways of how to grieve. And when we do grieving rightly, we do it and we end up closer to God instead of further away. And so that book really helped me. It's called Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy, I think is what it's called. But very practical book about grieving, and takes you all throughout the Bible, stories in the Bible, Job being one of them, about how to grieve properly. And it's not in a way of, oh, everything's fine and God is God, whatever, but it's taking that true anger that you're feeling to God, and on the other side of it, being closer to Him because you are honest of how you're feeling, and you're not trying to put up this front of whatever, it's fine, everything's fine, and then, you know, you build up this bitterness in your heart. Because that was the main thing for me, is I wanted, like, all these emotions were coming, right? Anger, confusion, and I didn't want my heart to become hard. And I think how we do that is we have to be honest with God, and we have to continue to pour our hearts out to God, all of our feelings, even if it is anger and confusion and whatever, but it turns hard and turns into bitterness when we aren't honest with God. So that book really helped me continue to be honest with God, and pour it out at His feet every day, whether that was happy or sad or whatever. Because some days I felt God's purpose in it all, and some days I felt like I wanted to sit in my room and cry all day, you know, and that's fine. It's normal. So if people are feeling angry with God, that's fine.
Mm.
It's normal, and there's nothing wrong with it. Just don't stay angry. I allowed myself to feel it, and I put it at His feet, and I didn't pick it back up. I just left it there because He is there, and He wants you, you know, to pour it all out to Him, and He can take it. You know, He's not intimidated by our sadness or confusion or hurt. But yeah, you're right. Like in Job, it's God is God, and we are not. And so I think I also had such peace in that too, that He can use, I mean, like, only God can use my son's death to bring glory to Him. Like, as far as back as I can remember, my whole life I've wanted God to be known through my life and to be reflected through my life. And if He uses my son's death, then that makes it all worth it. And that sounds crazy, but like, only God can bring one of my family members to know Him through Rain's death, you know, like, I can't make this stuff up, you know. And so to see God's fruit through my son, like, he's touched more lives than I could ever, you know. God has used Rain in so many ways more than maybe him being on earth. And so it's beautiful, really.
Yeah. Yeah. You hit on a lot of really big things there. The first thing is allowing yourself to feel the emotions. I think a lot of people, myself included, I'm learning this now at 32, you know, how to really process emotions and not suppress it, right? Like, allowing yourself to feel the anger. Actually, the seminar I was at this past weekend, there was a whole class on that where it was like, try to identify what you feel in your body when you feel anger. Like, do you feel tightness in your chest? Do you feel like, what do you feel? And don't run from it. So many people will run from that, right? And so I think it's a very poignant thing you said there. It's like, you allowed yourself to feel the anger. Like, I'm angry, and you bring it to God, and He meets you there, and he just, like, maybe it wasn't like a, you know, a light bulb moment where it's like, oh, all my anger is gone and everything, but it was just like a consistent, like, action stepping toward it, and that's like the healing process. So I think it's really cool that you hit on that.
Totally. Yeah, I agree on that for sure.
How did you and Grant walk through this together? Because I know that process had to look pretty messy, like, just really, really, really tough.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, we leaned on each other so much. Like, I remember I couldn't even make decisions like a couple days after, like, my mom came and she was with us, and she like would ask me questions, and I'm like, where's Grant? Like, I can't make this decision without Grant. Like, we were just like really, we weren't functioning, but we were together, like we were just really leaning on each other. And we were so, our marriage was so bonded after that too, because when you go through hard things together, naturally, right, you are just so bonded. And
Yeah.
he was the closest person I had through that. He experienced it just as much as I did, although he didn't carry Rain, but he was there, through the whole thing. So we were so bonded after that, for sure. Excuse me. We processed a lot together, like we learned the value of just like sitting down with each other, like holding each other, giving space for each other's grief and process. It each looked so different, and that was okay. And so giving space for that for each other really too was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. For Grant, how I'm trying to figure out how to word this question. What was that experience like for him? I mean, can you share any, like what was his process like? You know, how did he feel through the whole thing? How was he trying to be, there for you, but also there for himself? What did that look like?
I think as Rain's father, I think the biggest emotion he felt was that he let him down because he wasn't able to protect him, right? Because that's what fathers feel, is they are here and made to protect their children. So I think that was the main thing he felt, was that he let him down in that way because he wasn't able to protect him. But I think for his grieving process was, he wasn't as like vocal as I am, like he doesn't journal, he didn't really talk much, but he processed a lot in his mind. He's a very like internal processor. So I think that was mainly his process, was all internally. Like he would share sometimes, and here and there, and when he did, it was so profound because he had already processed it all internally.
Mm,
And so that was a lot of his process, was because he was still working, and like so he would, on his drives to work, I think really processing a lot internally with the Lord was key for him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just curious of what that looked like.
And
Yeah,
I think community too was huge for us, honestly. Um, People supporting us and being there for us was huge. Bringing us meals, like we didn't even, we didn't ask for it, but we didn't even know what we needed. That's the thing in grief, is like you're just so all over the place. It's like you don't even know how you're feeling, you don't know what you need. And a lot of
yeah,
people don't know how to help you, and they'll just be like, tell me what you need, and we're like, I don't know what I need.
yeah,
And we can't even text people back because we're so out of sorts. So I think just people showing up, there it is again, show up. Like just show up for people, and that is
mm,
huge. Like, bring them coffee even when they don't ask for it. Like it doesn't even matter if it's the wrong coffee that you normally order. Like just bring it to them, and that is it's such a big help when people just show up, because then you don't feel alone in it.
yeah. 1,000%. Just being there for people. Yeah, I think it's really cool that you guys. Well, the closeness part is something that I knew you were gonna say, and that was kind of like a hunch I had. Was like when you go, because the same thing that happens when you do hard stuff with people, right? You work out with them, you're in a group, you go through base camp, like if you're in the military, whatever. Like you bond with these people because you go through a similar experience, and it's really challenging. You have to lean on them, or at the very least, you just like you joke around with them and try to suffer well together. So it's like I think it's cool that you said that because I think very easily the opposite could have happened, right? The opposite thing could have happened where for whatever reason, one of you cannot handle the emotions, you can't handle the grief, you're mad, you're angry, and you take it
Yeah.
out on each other. And it very easily could have driven a wedge between you two. But instead,
Yeah.
it brought you two close together. And I'm sure there were moments where maybe you got frustrated at each other. I'm sure that, like, who knows? But I'm just saying, like, the fact that you guys are on the other side of this and closer is really, really, really cool and super
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it's hard to explain how, yeah, like when you, when you go through the hard things, how bonded you feel. But once you experience it, but not, you don't want to experience something bad like that. But any suffering, like you said, that you go through with people on the other side, you're like, wow, you feel so close with them because you experienced each other at your lowest. Yeah. So it's like, wow, you've seen the worst parts of me and yet you're still sticking around. That's incredible.
That's really cool. And now y'all are on, I mean, you're on the other side of it. And I'm sure that there are still moments where it's challenging and you think about it, but now you have a beautiful daughter and you're 5 months into being a mom, and you guys, God's faithful and like brought you through that whole process. And
Totally.
like, I mean, from the outside looking in, it's super encouraging. Like, I'll just say that's very encouraging.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, yeah, I mean, it's just part of our story now, and like, I think just seeing God working in it all, like, I want to continue to share that, I want for people to see God continuing to like mold us and use our story. Because I think even thinking about like how losing Rain has made me the mom that Rose needs, like that is so beautiful to me. It helps me feel close to Rain and it helps me see God's faithfulness in our story too. Like not only giving us Rose, but also like losing Rain totally like it broke me down and then like I feel like built me back up to who Rose needs. Like I'm totally different than before I had Rain. So like slowing down more or like being more sensitive, and I think like that's the mom that Rose needs. Is she needs me to enjoy time with her and like really connect with her, or like be that more empathetic and sensitive mother for her. And so even thinking like Rain made me that type of mom that Rose needs is encouraging to me too, to see God using him in that way.
No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
The, I was thinking about this earlier too. It's an interesting thing about grief, or about really just about anything that goes on in life. You can't just press pause on everything, you know? Like you go, like something happens and you can't just be like, oh, well, for a week, I'm just not going to eat and I'm just going to deal with this. It's like, well, you still got to eat food. I mean, you could starve yourself, but it's not going to be good. It's like you still got to eat food. You still got to do chores. If you're working, you might still have to work. And it's like finding space to go through that, anything, is really tough. And so I'm sure that was another challenge that you all had to face. Like you said, like people asking you, what do you need? And you're just like, I don't even know. I'm just trying to, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. So,
Yeah, a lot of the days it was like you're just trying to survive. But
yeah,
then it's like I just felt like, okay, another week went by, another week went by, okay, a month went by, and it like felt a little bit lighter like every so often. And
yeah,
so like they say, grief doesn't go away. It's always there. I feel like it's always, I feel like, just there, but you learn how to like live around it basically. And yeah, you learn how to, your grief, it doesn't get smaller or bigger, it stays the same. You just learn how to grow like with it basically. If that makes sense.
yeah. No, it does. Dang. Well, Morgan, I really appreciate you sharing that and being willing to talk about it. I know that
Yeah,
that's not easy. Um, Thank you for sharing that. Someone out there will glean a lot from that.
yeah,
So thank you. And thank you for sharing your nutrition knowledge and just coming on the podcast today and taking time out of your Sunday. So
Yeah, of course. I hope it was helpful to someone, and I don't know it all, but I love to share the things I've learned.
Yeah, we're getting to that point where it's like we've had quite a few trips around the sun. We're starting to learn a few things. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I
30.
know, yeah. That's something else I have to remind myself about my business is like I don't know everything, but the things I do know are actually really valuable to people because the things I do know isn't the knowledge that I have isn't normal. It's actually like I've had to work to have that knowledge, and the like majority of people don't have the knowledge I have, even though it's not a lot. But it is more than the typical person,
100%.
nutrition wise, I mean.
Yeah, no.
So it's like, yeah, reminding myself, oh, this like basic knowledge that I feel like is basic knowledge to me, right? Because we've been in this field for so many years. It's like, oh, to I don't know an example, but like 2 eggs in the morning is not enough breakfast. Most people think it is enough breakfast. So like
Yeah.
even thinking like, the knowledge that I have, I could make that as a like MK post. It seems so little to me, but it's actually valuable to other people.
Yes. Yes. If there's one thing I've learned in social media so far, it's exactly what you just said. Like, no matter how dumb or elementary it feels to you, just
Yeah.
post it because somebody will be like, "Oh, that's really helpful," and that if it's one person, it's valuable.
That is something I've been thinking about a lot lately because I am going to delete my business page and I'm just gonna start posting MK content on my personal because I have way more followers on my personal.
Yeah.
And I have to basically recreate. I can't just like save the video and like post it I have to like recreate the reel basically, which is so annoying. But um I'm like, oh, this I feel like is so lame. Like, oh, 3 ways to stay consistent during the week. Like, but I'm like, people probably would really like this. But to
Yeah.
me, it's like, oh, it's the same content over and over again. I feel like,
Yep. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. That's something that someone will get a lot of value from, and it really is posting the same content, just saying it in different ways. From different
that's
angles,
so true.
different
Yeah.
hooks. Maybe give a little bit different tip, whatever. 1,000%. Just keep doing it. Someone will get value from it, and I mean, you'll continue to grow.
Yeah. I was curious, what is the video that blew up for you? Like the first one that really blew up?
Yeah, it was a. It's funny. It was a video on how you used to do core in your 20s, and it was like me doing V-ups, and then said until you figured out what actually works, and then it was
Uh-huh.
me just doing rotational deadlifts, some windmills, some carries, and for whatever reason, it just took off, and that was the video. I was at like 2,100 followers. Had been posting 3 times a day for months, and literally it was crazy. I was refreshing my feed like every few seconds, and it was like another 100 followers, another 100 followers. It just kept going. I was like, this is crazy, and that was the one that like really started
That's
off.
so cool.
Yeah.
And have you been following like have you I know you've done like seminars here and there, but do you have like a business coach or like anything that how did you get like your content layout or whatever your themes?
Yeah, so that's been a process I've kind of just figured out on my own. Like
Yeah.
I'll study other people's, like what are other people having success with, and how can I kind of copy it but like make it my own, right? The style, the whatever. Oh yeah, there's balloons.
Oh, nice.
um, yeah, so then I just kind of came up with a format that made sense, and I created my own calendar on a whiteboard of like Mondays 2 reels are going to be X, Y, and Z. Tuesdays 2 reels are going to be X, Y, and Z, whatever. And then I just try to create content around that.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. I was wondering because there's so much out there, like, oh, pay this much for like mentorship on, growing your business. And I'm just wondering, like, how valuable is that? Because I feel like like you said, like, you can just do your own studying and your own research of the, because that's what Grant has told me to do. He's like, look at people that are succeeding, coaches that are succeeding at their content. What does it look like? What are they doing that people love? You know, like taking note on that
Yep.
and just, like
No,
you said, doing that in your own way.
100%. So now, as far as now, I did buy into a mentorship program that's not geared around social media and growing that, but it is geared around like sales, like learning how to actually have a sales conversation and walk, like overcome objections, which is super valuable.
Mm-hmm.
How to have a setter, so in your Instagram, who starts conversations and leads toward book calls, like so that was super valuable. But as far as the social media goes, yeah, I would just I studied other people's content, like watched when they would cut the angles, the everything, the music in the background, how it would time up, and then I would just try to do my best to make it look like that. And it's not as good because I don't have a videographer and I don't have like a super awesome camera, but it was close. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep trying to make it like this the best I can. If you do that and focus on value, like you said, 3 ways to stay consistent during the week. That's awesome. I would watch that and I'd be like, this is really cool. This is helpful. I love that. It's like whatever's going to provide value, people will watch
Yeah.
and eat it up.
Yeah. And you have another job, right?
Yeah, I'm still working as a server right now.
How many days a week do you do that?
Four nights.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the next phase. I want to actually get out of there in the next month or two, because right now I have to do everything in such a condensed window between like working out, making content, taking calls, all the things, and then go to work all night. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have my son in the afternoon. So I want to give him as much attention as I can. So I don't really work on those days. So it's like, get up and you just start. Like,
Yeah,
I
just
don't have a
freaking
choice.
go.
Yeah. You're tired and you're like, well, F it. I got to make this content and post it and schedule it and whatever.
Oh, wow. Well, good job. You're juggling so much, but you're crushing it.
Well, to be candid, it's come from a place of like despotism and a little bit of like guilt/shame, of like, man, I just feel like I messed a lot of things up. And so part of my motivation is like, I just don't want to feel like that anymore. And it's slowly moving toward, okay, how can I really just like help people? Make it less about like me trying to atone for my mistakes and more about helping people. But my motivation when I first started last year was like, I just feel like a piece of shit. And I don't like that. Like, just being completely honest.
Yeah.
So,
I saw this video the other day. I don't remember what it was referring to, but it was actually referring to guilt as not a bad thing because it moves us to action,
mm-hmm.
which I was like, wow, because like all like the Bible and like Christianity, it makes guilt, it sounds like such a bad persona, but it was actually referring to like when you feel guilty for something, it can move you towards being different and moving you towards action, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That same guy, Alex Hormozy, he said something very similar, which was very liberating for me, where he said when he first got started, he was like, I would love to tell you that my motivation was, helping people succeed and helping them lose weight and whatever. He's like, but honestly, he's like, I just didn't want, I just didn't want my dad to think of me as a failure. And now that's not the
Wow.
same. It's not the same as guilt, right? But it's not a motivation that would be quote unquote honoring. Like it's not
Right.
a healthy motivation, but it's what you got. And that's what he said. He's like, you just use what you got in the beginning and just let it motivate you. And over time, it'll change. I was like, man, that is
Well,
actually awesome. That's so liberating because instead of judging yourself, you're like, F it.
um that was also something that I've been loving. I wanted to encourage you and say that I've been loving seeing you post more is about your faith journey and how beautiful that is, since you do kind of like what I touched on, like I created MK so that when I first created it, I was so full with faith. I was like praying for every client. Like I didn't even care if they like didn't believe in God. I was like just pouring identity over them and like just like praying for them like before the call, and then I would like talk to them, and like it would, whatever I would feel over them would be exactly like what they were going through, and I would be able to like tell them God loves them and da da da. So, but that was one of the reasons I created my own business, is because I'm like, if I worked for some, because I actually looked into working for RP Strength,
Yeah.
and because my mom loves them, and I was like, and they're great, they're awesome, but I was like, if I work for someone and I'm a coach under someone, I can't just like pray for people or like, share Jesus with them like I would want to. And so that's why I felt like it was right for me to create my own business, because then I can pray for them and share about God however much I want. And
Yeah.
so I was encouraged when you started sharing about that, because you have that freedom too. And who knows what God could do through you and your story. And so I was excited to see you sharing more of that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, I was really nervous to post it on my main page, but I was like, man, why? Like, what am I afraid of? Afraid of people saying something or whatever. And it really just felt more like, I think for me personally, it was like, well, I want to be Mr. Perfect first before I talk about Jesus. It's like,
Mm.
that's the complete opposite of the gospel. Like, that's literally the complete opposite. And so I was like,
Gosh,
okay,
yeah, that's so
like
true.
I'm just going to be really honest and just share my thoughts on this. And I'm just going to post it and just be faithful to using my platform for good and not for, like, if I post a video of me shirtless working out, it's like, I kind of feel douchey doing that. I understand it's part of it and whatever, but I was like, at the very least, I want to have like some actual like substance on here of like, not just trying to post shirtless pics. Like, there's actually more to this than just working out and being fit. So
Yeah. Gosh, and that's so cool though, because God could use those posts more than your shirtless picture. Like, I mean, who knows what if you really do give him that platform, and that like you do start like walking in obedience, and that, not saying that you haven't been walking in obedience, but just giving him that opportunity to like use those, whatever you feel, posts or content, whatever, then he could do way more than you could ever.
now,
And I'm speaking to myself too, because I'm like, that's so true. He can do way more than we could at our best day.
yeah, no, that's awesome. That's very encouraging. I appreciate you saying that. Um,
Yeah.
all right, well, this is really good getting to catch up. I'm glad we got to
Yeah.
catch up. Everyone got to see us just like chat and talk and catch up, and that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I know,
um,
I at the end there, I was just like really wanting to know about you and stuff. So don't, if you want to pull something from there, I guess, but
no, no,
it was more of a conversation.
no, I love it. That's great. That's yeah, I love when these are great podcasts or podcasts where it's just real, like they're just
Yeah.
people being people. It's like I love it. I'm working on getting more authentic in it and the whole thing. So I'm all for it. Um,
Yeah.
Again, thank you for coming on, sharing information. It was really, really good to catch up. Let's stay in touch on social media. If you ever have questions, I'm happy to help. And I'll always refer people up to you if they have any nutrition questions. I'm happy to. So
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was nice chatting.
yeah. Real quick, what was your Instagram handle? What did you say it was?
Morgan Kauahi, 2 N's in Morgan. Do you want me to like
Morgan.
spell it?
Well, I'll put a link down bottom, but for anybody
Oh,
out there who just wants to type it in, you can look up her
okay.
handle, message Morgan. I'm sure she'll be happy to help you.
Yeah,
Cool.
definitely.
All right. Well, hey, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.